Everyone thought that he was a useless loser, but somehow he turns out to be the strongest hero, who is pretending to be normal and immediately creates a harem. Alan used to be the strongest hero, but he got tired of saving worthless humans at the expense of his personal life, so when he was about to die, he made a wish to the goddess weeping beside him that he wants to live like a normal man in his next life. His wishes come true, and he becomes the loser son of a duke. One fine day, he wakes up in his bedroom as his younger brother comes banging on his door and tells him that their father wants to meet them. His dad immediately starts insulting Alan, telling him that he is still a level 1 loser even after so many years and his stats have not increased in the least. On top of that, he did not even get any divine gift from God like other noble children. He then kicks Alan out of the family, claiming that he is a failure and a blot on his family's name. Alan gets out of the castle completely unfazed as he was waiting for this moment so that he can spend this life having fun and not worrying about other people, but realizes that he still has his powers from the last life. Just before he could go wander around, he hears a girlish scream coming from a distance. It turns out to be 2 girls who are being attacked by some monsters. The tomboy knight Betty tries to slash and stab the dog monsters, but even as she shatters them to pieces, they immediately heal back up. She tells the princess named Lisa to run away while she blocks the dog monsters, but the princess is adamant about not leaving her behind, so she simply stands behind her while Betty tries her best to keep the monsters at bay. Alan watches it from a distance by using his magical eyes and remembers how when they were young, some men at a party were making fun of him for being useless, but Lisa stepped in and told those men that at least he tries. This makes him want to help her in this situation. Just as the incompetent warrior woman falls, one of the dogs slashes her body, leaving her knocked out on the ground. The monsters are just about to finish the job, but Alan musters all of his magical energy and runs faster than lightning to appear in front of the princess at the very last moment, grabbing the dog by its throat. Lisa is shocked as Alan attacks the 3 monsters before jumping in the air and scanning them. He finds out that they all have a core inside of them, so he uses his special ability that creates a bunch of ethereal swords around him and throws them at the dog monsters, completely obliterating them. Betty apologizes to Lisa for being incompetent and thinks that this is the end for her. However, Alan approaches her and uses his healing magic to heal her completely and even restores her armor. This really shocks the girls as everyone knew that Alan was a useless loser without any power. He can't tell them that these are powers from his previous life, but the girls come to the conclusion that this must be a new type of divine blessing the church doesn't know about. He then asks Lisa what the hell is she doing out in the countryside, and she explains that while she was praying to the goddess, she received a prophecy that she needs to go to a faraway village to help the hero. There was no other detail, and she left the capital alongside Betty, who was one of the strongest female warriors, and her bodyguard. Lisa then asks Alan what he is doing here, and he replies that they should talk about that while resuming their journey. He gets up and fixes the carriage using his healing magic. While traveling through the countryside, Lisa learns that he was kicked out by his dad for being powerless. Now he simply wants to live a normal life away from fame and people. She pities him and even refuses to snitch him out to the king despite knowing how helpful his powers can be to the kingdom. Alan thanks her and promises to accompany her while she is roaming through the countryside in search of the hero. After a while, they finally reach the village that she was looking for, and surprisingly enough, they don't find any monsters roaming around the area, which is very rare. They walk around the village, but it looks empty until they finally see a horde of people while a girl gets kicked out of an old man's house. This flat-chested girl turns out to be Akira, who is the current hero and holds the all-powerful sword that once belonged to Alan in his previous life. Akira doesn't even recognize Lisa and asks them to take her out to lunch first because she is hungry. While inside a restaurant, they start eating, and Akira tells them that she was wandering around the village when she spotted a young girl running through the woods. She grabbed her and asked if she was fine, but she claimed that the dragon was going to eat her. Hearing this, she decided to slay the dragon and hid the girl in a small cave before heading into the village to get some more information. But when she entered the old man's house to ask questions, he refused to talk and threw her out. Alan finds all of this a bit suspicious and theorizes that there is a possibility that these villagers are trying to sacrifice the girl's life in order to gain protection from the dragon, and that's why they can't see any monsters around the area. This theory makes sense to all of them, so Akira decides that she is going up the hill and slaying the dragon by herself. Lisa immediately volunteers to go with her as, according to the prophecy, she needs to guide the hero, and Betty obviously follows Lisa. Alan takes a deep breath as he can't leave his friends alone, so he decides to go with them in case they get overpowered by the dragon. While climbing up the hill, Akira seems to be very confident in her abilities and draws up a plan, claiming that she will go straight up and face the dragon while the others should go around the mountain and pincer the monster. Alan knows that this hero is completely useless and will get destroyed, so he offers to go from the front alone while the girls go around the mountain. However, Akira can tell that he is more powerful than he shows and he might kill the dragon without letting her fight. That is why she wants to go from the front and then requests to spar with him once she is done with the dragon. Alan agrees to the plan, and Akira ends up going straight up to the dragon, who immediately gets up and shoots a massive flame blast at her. She dodges it somehow and uses her special abilities to cast lightning on the dragon, but her magic is so weak that it simply tickles the dragon as he laughs in her face. Suddenly, the dragon shows her that the little girl is also here and reveals that he simply wanted to have fun terrorizing the villagers, which is why he released her on purpose. This pisses Akira off, and she musters all of her strength and rushes in with a lightning attack, slashing the dragon cleanly before posing like a hero. But when she turns around, she finds the dragon completely unharmed. He laughs and slaps her into oblivion, which completely incapacitates her as she lies on the ground waiting for the dragon to finish her. Thankfully, Alan comes to her rescue and slashes one of the dragon's wings cleanly, knocking the dragon down. He then tells the girls to get out of the area while the dragon charges at him with full speed, but Alan simply uses his magic attack to throw an aerial slash which hits the dragon and stops him in his tracks. The dragon is very confused as he is the Red Dragon King, the strongest dragon in the world, but Alan immediately scans him and is ready to deliver the final blow. The dragon starts running away like a coward before jumping on top of the girls. He promises to kill them if Alan takes a step further, but Alan doesn't give a damn and rushes in with a strike, penetrating the dragon with his sword and unleashing his ultimate move that completely destroys the dragon. Everyone rejoices at the victory, and Alan realizes that the girls can't survive a day in this world without his help and decides to delay his retirement till Lisa's work is done. The next morning, he wakes up by the tree only to find Lisa staring at him. He then looks around to see the little girl sitting and watching while the hero Akira and Betty are having a sparring match to decide who is the strongest among them. Suddenly, Alan remembers that yesterday Lisa used S-class healing magic on Akira when she was injured, but Lisa tells him not to divulge this information to anyone else as it is a secret she has been keeping, and Alan promises that her secret will be safe with him. Just then, Akira calls Alan over, claiming that they want to have a sparring match with him as well. Later that day, they all get ready in the wagon, but Akira decides that she wants to wing it alone and doesn't want to travel in a wagon. Alan asks whether she will be alright, but she promises that she knows how to handle herself and tells them that she will be taking the girl with her. This makes Alan suspicious, so he tells her to beware of FBI, and she goes off on her way. Alan and the rest proceed into the wagon where Lisa apologizes to Alan because in the last fight against the dragon, his sword broke and tells him that she wants to go to a nearby village, which is filled by degenerates because her friend called Null lives there and forges amazing swords. Alan tells her not to worry about it but agrees to go into the village regardless. Meanwhile, back at Alan's house, his father and his brother, Karen, are talking about how their plan failed. It turns out that it was them who sent the monster dogs to attack the princess as well as they made a deal with the dragon to kill the hero as they want to take revenge on the kingdom. Karen starts shouting, but his father tells him to shut his mouth up while he turns his attention towards an old butler-looking dude, and tells him to get more information about the whereabouts of the princess. Back at the village, Alan is shocked to see the area filled with all kinds of demi-humans roaming around the area while he finds his way to Null's house. Inside, they find her lying on the floor, which gives Lisa a scare, but it turns out that she was just exhausted after working all night. Lisa heals her back up and afterwards asks her to make a sword for Alan, but she outright refuses, claiming that she has a lot of customers who want their swords polished and fixed urgently. She then asks what happened to his original sword, which Alan then shows to her. She looks at him with disgust and claims that she can never forge a weapon for a guy who can't take care of it. Lisa tells her to check it once, so she uses her special abilities to see how it broke and realizes that this sword was used perfectly to its full potential and only then did it break. This changes her mind, and she agrees to do the job for him and then kicks all of them out so she can work in peace. After that, the three of them decide to go inside the town to get a lodge to stay at night, but it turns out that a girl wearing a very dumb dress has been spying on them who turns out to be working for the old butler guy. She tells him about what she saw, but he is confused because there is supposed to be only one useless female guard with Lisa and not another guy. After spending the day in the town, Alan decides to sell the dragon scales that he scavenged at the Adventurers Guild. A bit sad, Alan walks down to the Adventurers Guild and goes over to the counter only to find another furry receptionist. He gives over the dragon scale to her and asks her to trade it for money, but this thought has never seen a red dragon scale in her life and starts shouting like crazy. This attracts the attention of the old butler alongside the lowly who go up to Alan, and the butler starts asking how he got the scale. Alan tells him that he and his party had a fight with the Red Dragon King and were able to win it, and that's why he got the scale. The butler uses his skills to check his level and realizes that Alan is a level 1 loser, so he asks whether the hero was in his party. Alan truthfully replies saying that the hero was in their party and together they defeated it. The butler seems to be satisfied by it and wanders outside, where he tells the lowly that the guy is a complete nerd who can't even cut his own steak, let alone kill a dragon. But the lowly is still apprehensive and claims that she feels like he is hiding something. The next morning, Alan and party go back to Noel's place to check up on her only to find her down on the ground unconscious once again. Lisa helps her back to consciousness while she tells Alan that his sword is ready. Alan picks up the slender blue blade and claims that it definitely is one of the best swords that he has ever seen, and immediately the thirsty elf starts telling him that she wants him to try it outside. Lisa immediately puts a stop to it, forcing Noel to rest before doing anything, but after that, they head outside into the forest to try and slay some monsters. On the way, they start talking, and Alan asks Noel why she is a swordsmith as it is usually done by dwarves. Noel tells him that it is because she lost her family when she was a young elf, and while wandering through the forest, she ended up being saved by a dwarf named Vanessa who was more manly than you. Vanessa then took care of her, but then an unfortunate accident happened, and she lost her forever. Before she could explain further, the butler showed up once again with the lowly inside the forest for no reason and started asking whether he is here to kill monsters, but Alan tells him to stop acting like a stalker, so the butler leaves quickly. Alan goes further and finds some monsters that he easily destroys with his new sword, cutting them to shreds, which seems to be a good enough test for the sword, but this thirsty elf is still not satisfied and claims that they should kill some stronger monsters and drags him deeper into the forest. Suddenly, Alan stops and uses his magic eyes before using his sword to slash away the magic barrier in front of him to reveal a giant wolf-tiger abomination that gives Noel some post-traumatic Down syndrome as she realizes that this is the thing which killed Vanessa, so she asks Alan to slay it immediately. While Alan stands there confused, not knowing what the right decision to make is, Noel starts remembering about the past and how she was horribly neglected when she was young. Even though Vanessa took her back to her home, she hardly ever talked or cared for her and spent most of her time hitting the blade over and over with a sheer sense of determination in each strike. Noel tried to get Vanessa's attention in every way imaginable as she shouted her name again and again to no avail, and even when she wanted food, she would get no response. This pissed her off a little bit, so she would go and eat whatever she could find in the house. But even after that, she would get the silent treatment from Vanessa, who kept beating away at the blade like clockwork. At last, NL tried to do something really drastic and picked up a sword before losing her balance and falling over all the other tools. Despite that, Vanessa didn't even look at her once to make sure she was okay. She ended up sleeping at the table, and when the next morning came, Vanessa finally completed her blade at last. Only then did NL see something resembling a smile on her face. Finally, she snapped back to reality and, with tear-filled eyes, told Alan to destroy the creature as he was the one who killed Vanessa. Alan refused to do anything as the beast was not trying to harm them. In fact, it was far away from human settlement, peacefully sleeping and minding its own business. Hearing this, NL grabbed the sword out of Alan's hand and, with clenched teeth, ran towards the beast to land a killing blow, only to be stopped by Alan. He warned her that this would be of no use as the beast had a protective spell around it, which didn't let an attack below a certain level land on it. According to him, they would need a sacred sword if they wanted to hurt the monster. But NL told him that her sword was good enough to be considered a sacred sword. Alan told her that her sword was nowhere near the level of a sacred sword, and no matter how hard she tried, the blade wouldn't even make a scratch on the beast. After saying that, he started walking away, telling her that she could do as she pleased. The next evening, he went back to the town and met up with Lisa and Betty before telling them the entire story about what had just transpired inside the depths of the forest. Lisa was confused about why a great monster would be hiding inside the jungles doing nothing, but Alan claimed that he suspected someone intentionally brought the monster to this area as they used a spell around the area which made the beast invisible to the naked eye. He then turned towards Lisa and asked her what was the real reason she wanted to come here, as he doubted she would come here just to try and create a sword. Lisa smiled embarrassingly before revealing that he was right, and they came here to investigate the murder of the general of their army. According to her, the general was a very righteous and good man, but one day he was found assassinated inside his own home with no signs of any intruders and zero evidence apart from the fact that the killer took the general's head with him, leaving the body behind. Betty suspected that this was the work of a demon as no human possessed this skill, but they had no idea why a demon would go out of its way to kill the general so secretively. Meanwhile, inside the forest, a lowly checked up on the monstrous wolf but was confused. How could a normal human being like Alan destroy the invisibility barrier she put up so easily? She then headed back to the town to meet up with the butler and gave him the report. The butler claimed that this town was boring and he wanted to leave, so he told the lowly to go and kill the princess as well as the elf, NL, which surprised the girl. The butler noticed it and walked back to her, telling her that she had no choice as a slave collar appeared on her neck. That night, NL started working on the blade once again after Alan gave her a bunch of information about what the problems were with the blade. This time, she was determined to produce a blade that could be rivaled by none. She kept hitting the blade just like Vanessa did but ended up getting exhausted and sleeping right where she was. In her dreams, she again witnessed the events that transpired on that horrific day when their home was attacked by the monstrous wolf alongside the butler, who wanted to remove Vanessa from the earth just because she was trying to make swords that could rival the sacred treasures. The wolf shoved her through the house as she slid back but managed to stabilize herself before rushing in for an attack. But to her surprise, the moment her blade touched the wolf, it shattered into thousands of pieces while the wolf tore her apart with its sharp teeth. With blood pouring down its teeth, the monster turned around to finish NL, but suddenly a huge bolt of lightning shocked it, and the hero presented herself in front of NL. The wolf didn't really care and tried to attack her, but she shocked the monster once again, which it shook off as if it was nothing. Before attacking again, the hero counterattacks and manages to slash the monster across the face thanks to her sacred sword, which scares the butler enough that he decides to run from the scene. The hero apologizes for not being able to save Vanessa, but Null is distraught because even after Vanessa put all her hard work into that blade, it simply shattered on impact. She cries her heart out, vowing that she will make a blade better than a sacred sword. The next morning, she wakes up feeling much better and lighter. She wonders whether Lisa healed her and comes out to check, but finds no one, so she gets to her work again. It turns out that Alan healed her at night to make sure she remained healthy. If you liked this recap and don't want to miss the next part of this anime, then like this video and subscribe to my channel.